guys, and welcome to Book and Loop, where happiness is handmade and the best boyfriends are always found in books. I was not kidding when I told you guys in the last video that I was going to jump right into recording my vlogs for my books that I'm going to be reading. So currently I am on the first shelf of A's. At the time that I'm recording this introduction, I'm hoping that I made it through the whole shelf of A's. We're already halfway through May at this point. It's currently May 17th, and I've only finished one and like a quarter books so far. I'm hoping that I will have gotten further. If I didn't, I'll insert a clip of me being like, oh no, I only got like a quarter of the way through the shelf. So we'll see. Alright, a tiny bit unsurprising, but I only got 3 books into the shelf this month. I kind of just I guess overestimated my time that I would have once school ended in order to read a bunch. I kind of just did as much as I could. I definitely could have read more, but kind of just had a couple things that I had to take care of at the end of the year to kind of finish up some stuff for school. So now I am hoping that June will be a different tune. But yeah, I only got to read 3 books. I'm a little disappointed. But I have a lot to say about those 3 books, so that's good. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So the first book that I read from the library was Atia Abawi's A Land of Permanent Goodbyes. And let me tell you, this book absolutely destroyed me. I cried, I don't even know, like probably 4 separate times while reading this book, and it just really was so touching and really like devastating read. It's been compared to The Kite Runner. It kind of gave me The Book Thief vibes. It's about the like war experience of somebody, but told through the eyes of destiny, similar to how The Book Thief is told through the eyes of death. Let me just say that I was really surprised by this book. I kind of usually like steer clear of sad books because I usually, when I'm reading because I want to be happy. And so this was probably not something I would have picked up on my own, despite the fact that I absolutely love The Kite Runner. But this book just like, wow, like amazed me. Like honestly, like was so good. The first few pages, I was a little bit confused. I honestly was unsure the first few pages. I was like, oh no, like am I gonna like this? It was very like disorienting, and I think that was done by design because it's meant to be disorienting, because it's meant to reflect the feelings of war. So I was really like, once I got like past those like first few chapters, and the story started to like become more like narrative and a little clearer to me, I was like, wow, like this is really amazing, like really good writing. It follows the story of Tarek, who is a teenager during the Syrian war crisis, and it starts off on a really sad note. Something happens and he winds up having to leave Syria because of just the devastation that the war has been causing. And this book follows his journey as he travels from Syria through to Turkey and then on to Greece eventually. And it's just him, his dad, and his sister, and he kind of has these people that join his journey throughout the way, but eventually they either leave or something happens. And it's really just a powerful story to really make you think about the experience of a refugee and what exactly they must go through. So I'll tell you a little story about when I studied abroad in Greece. We actually, our professor, some of our coursework was on refugees and the amount of refugees that were coming into Greece during the time. So this was back, I went studied abroad in 2019. And while we were there, he set up this whole thing that we were going to go to basically a refugee camp essentially in the middle of Athens, and we were going to go work in the soup kitchen for a day. So we went and we sat and we talked to people, and it really was just heartbreaking to see like how many people were there, and like to imagine the things that they went through and to hear about the things that they went through in order to kind of just like get to a better life. And it was and it was interesting because we got to see a lot of the things that Alexia talks about in the book, where you have like just those huge amounts of donations in clothing, and like that like overwhelming sense of like there are people out there that care, and there are people out there that want these people to have better lives, even though, and again you saw as well like the people outside of that refugee camp that were mad and angry, and the idea that they referred to it as a crisis, and that it was um, some people didn't really want them there, whereas other people were so willing and happy to help and saw that struggle of being a refugee and needing that kind of support from others. Um, so it kind of like brought me back to that moment of sitting in that kitchen and like being like serving these people and trying to like just do our best to help in the way that we could. And I think that it's really a book that will make you think. It's a book that will make you cry. It's also a book that will help you to appreciate humanity a little more. Um, I think that it is extremely relevant for our time right now with everything going on in the world. I just think that you should definitely pick it up and read it because it's really good. And I don't know how the next book that I'm going to read is, but I feel like it's not going to be able to top this because this was just like started off so strong, honestly. It was so good, and I'm going to definitely try and pick up some other Atia Abawi books because this one was just so good. So I definitely recommend that you guys check out A Land of Permanent Goodbyes by Atia Abawi. Okay, so I finished reading Junk Boy by Tony Abbott yesterday. That was the second book on my list of books that I had to finish. And Junk Boy was actually pretty okay. It was a novel told in verse about a boy who kind of gets bullied a lot in school because he lives in basically a junkyard. His dad has a kind of like upwarding problem, and they kind of just have collected a bunch of trash on their front lawn. As a result of this, the main character, Bobby, gets kind of referred to as junk when he's in school and is kind of just bullied. And Bobby kind of just has like a lot of issues with his dad and like doesn't really get along with him, and just like kind of sees the world in like a very different way. He meets this girl Rachel at school one day after seeing an altercation between her and her mom, when her mom finds out that Rachel has a girlfriend. And this kind of forms this very unlikely friendship between the two. Um, if you can even call it really a friendship, they kind of like are there for each other in the moments they need them, but they still argue a lot, and it's kind of like a very like strange and like very like shaky friendship. But despite this, Sean kind of really starts to look at his life more fully after meeting Rachel and kind of realizing all the things that he's been unhappy with, and as a result of that kind of like fights back against his dad and the other people in his life that he feels like are making him unhappy. I don't usually read novels in verse, just because I find that for me it's confusing. Um, for example, the beginning of this book was kind of confusing for me, and I know that like I said that the beginning of A Land of Permanent Goodbyes was confusing for me, but this book was like confusing in a way that like I couldn't make sense of. Like A Land of Permanent Goodbyes, like I can understand why that was confusing. There was like a bomb that went off and like it was confusing, you know. Whereas Junk Boy, I kind of was just confused at the beginning and didn't really understand. It's a little too like out there for me when books are written in verse. While this book like was interesting and the plotline was interesting and the idea of these two like unlikely friends becoming friends was interesting, I don't know if it's necessarily something that I would like rave about or pick up and suggest to somebody. So the second I finished Junk Boy, I started reading Tony Abbott's other book that we have at the library, which is The Summer of Owen Todd. And this book is actually very different. It's not written in verse, so that's what makes me think that it's just the fact that the other book was written in verse that I didn't really like it as much. The Summer of Owen Todd is not written in verse. It is about a 11-year-old boy who's just graduating from elementary school and his best friend. And his best friend gets a new babysitter, and the new babysitter is kind of really weird and doing some really like sketchy things with the main character's best friend. The main character is Owen, and then the best friend is Sean. And Sean, Owen's like not really sure how to help Sean get through this weird thing that's going on with the babysitter. I'm really liking this book a lot more. It's a lot easier to read, a lot more straightforward. Not that like I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a book that makes you think, but I think certain things need to be put a little more like straightforward. I think in the case of The Summer of Owen Todd, this is like a really serious topic that's being portrayed in a way that's a little more digestible for a younger audience, because it is built for a younger audience, this book. I mean, we're dealing with like some really heavy stuff, and like not to say that like it's not stuff, like these are things that children really are dealing with in the world, and like I think that the level of removal in it being told from the point of view of Owen and not from the point of view of Sean is good. Because it also gives you that like outside perspective of like, oh my goodness, this horrible thing is happening to my best friend, and like how do I deal with it? How do I process it in a way that is going to set me up to the best of my ability help my friend, you know? Other than that piece of the book, it also is layered in with a lot of like really great like just summer boy activities. Owen's dad runs a go-karting shop. They like go on adventures to this like marine shop that is across the street from Sean's mom's job. They are just there on the baseball team together, and they play a bunch of baseball games, and it's just like shows how like life can seem so normal, but there can be something going on underneath the surface. I mean, while this book is like the topic is really upsetting and like it's really like disturbing to think about, the way that this book is written works better for me than Junk Boy did. So I think that like is a good example of like you should never like discount an author just because you don't really like enjoy one way that they write. Like I probably like previously would have picked up Junk Boy and read it and then like, okay, like I don't really like Tony Abbott's writing. But then picking up The Summer of Owen Todd and reading it, I was like, okay, yeah, like I like this author's writing. I think that they're doing a really good job. I like now would probably pick up more Tony Abbott books and like read a couple more of them, and he's written like a ton of books. Like I can't even tell you, like the list of books that this guy's written is like so crazy long. But he but you never know, and that's why like you should always like this like really like made me think like, oh, like I should like give authors like more of a chance to like prove themselves before kind of just being like reading one book and being like, I didn't really like it, you know. I think that's a good lesson for everybody. So I'm about halfway through The Summer of Owen Todd. I am hoping to finish it tonight. I want to try and get through, I know I said at the beginning of this video, which I recorded like last week, that I wanted to finish the entire first shelf of the A books. We have, I think, 5 shelves of A books. So I wanted to finish the first one by the end of May, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So my goal is to at least get to like past the AB books. I'm not sure if that will happen because I'm only on ABB, as you can see. So that's it. Those are the 3 books that I read this month. I read A Land of Permanent Goodbyes. I read Junk Boy, and I also read The Summer of Owen Todd. So these 3 books were actually pretty good. I feel like we started off pretty strong, even though I didn't really fully enjoy Junk Boy. I still feel like The Summer of Owen Todd was great, and I still feel like A Land of Permanent Goodbyes just was absolutely amazing and blew me out of the water. I'm really excited to see what is going to be coming next. I have already checked out my next book that I'll be reading. I like I said, didn't get as far as I wanted to, but I feel like I am going to now have more time to kind of, you know, build onto my next set of books and really tackle that reading list in June. So I will be starting June off with Does My Head Look Big in This by Randa Abdel Fattah. We have a couple of her books in the library. I think we have 3 total. So I'll be starting off with Does My Head Look Big in This, and then jumping into The Lines We Cross, and then after that I'll be reading 10 Things I Hate About Me, and then I will jump on to the next author. So I'm super excited. I hope that you guys are equally as excited. I really hope that this like little short amount of books that I read over this past month will kind of get your guys' feet wet and you guys ready to jump into June, which will be hopefully a lot more books that I've read that month. So I am really super excited and I can't wait to get started. So if you guys enjoyed your May, and I hope you guys are reading some good books, I'll see you later.